Bethany.
And I'm Lauren.
Welcome to the Healing Collective podcast, where we explore the paradox of healing at the individual and the collective level.
Join us as we invite guests to share their personal paths to freedom.
Well, this is Paul.
Hi, so nice to meet you. You look beautiful. I'm obsessed with your nails. I've been watching all of the podcasts. I think I've only missed the most recent one, the one today. And and I told Bethany, I was like, I'm so excited to see what Lauren looks like. I'm like, so I'm a huge fan.
Yeah. He was our first YouTube subscriber. He watches every week.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really do. Every Thursday after my classes, I go in bed and I just close my eyes and I put on the film and let it wash over me. So
I figure that you have some feedback for us, probably around our voice, some coaching.
Are we doing it? Is this it?
We're going.
Oh, I didn't even know. Okay, wow, we're going. Maybe like. As Kristen Linklater would say, she was my teacher, so I'm a designated Linklater teacher. Linklater's a voice and speech training methodology. She would say, I only listen to people's voices if I'm paid. If people are paying me to do it, other than that, I'm not paying attention, so that's coming to mind right now.
If we ask you about it? What if we really want to hear what you have to say about our voices?
I could tell you. It's all about, so Kristen Linklater would say, to free the voice is to free the person, and each person is indivisibly mind and body. So the purpose of the body of work that I teach is to free, strengthen, and develop the voice from the bottom to the top. So when I teach this work, it's not about placing the voice. It's not about saying, there's a right place to be. It's good to be down. It's good to be up here. We open up the whole thing through a series of exercises and then let the voice go wherever it needs to go based on what's happening emotionally or imaginatively, because it's usually taught in the context of actor training. And that's what I do. I'm an assistant professor of voice and speech at the Boston Conservatory. So I work in the theater division. I train actors. That's what I do. So I don't know, I think what I notice is where people sometimes get stuck, and I've talked to Bethany sometimes about her voice maybe getting a little away from the body, and rather than letting the voice drop into the body and come from the body. So we will use an image in Linklater of a pool of vibrations in the belly and letting the voice come from that pool, but lower. Yeah. And you don't even have to work so hard with it. Yeah. It takes a while. And I don't know. Are you shy? I am shy. I'm shy because I don't want to come in guns a-blazing, like giving people, feedback.
We'll work up to it. We'll see if we want to do feedback later. How does that sound?
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I feel my energy is definitely shifting already.
Good.
I kind of have tears a little bit. Like,
beautiful.
I think there's something. Obviously, acting is important, and in general, like what you're saying about freeing the voice, feels like an existential, mission.
Mm-hmm. It is the most beautiful work in the world. I feel when I'm in the classroom that I see the best in humanity, because people, we don't ever have a platform where we can just say what we're really thinking and feeling. And that's what my classroom is. In the first exercise that I teach is called voice pictures. And I bring in a bunch of crayons and I put them on the floor. And the kids think I'm a wackadoodle. The students, they're like, what is this? Are we in elementary school? And I say, all right, draw your voice as it is now. And this is a Kristen Linklater exercise. Got to give credit where it's due. And the students
Shout out Kristen.
Yeah, she's
with us.
Yeah, so she's here. And she said, I say, draw your voice as it is now. And people unconsciously will draw like black and brown and gray and boxes and it's scattered and, slashes and all of this across the page. And then I say, okay, put that one aside. And I say, now draw your voice as you would like it to be. And it's colorful, again, on the unconscious level. Reds and oranges and purples and extending off the page and swirls and so on and stars. And then I say, okay, now draw the outline of your body like a little Pillsbury Doughboy or a gingerbread man. And I say, this represents your body. And I say, now draw inside that body. So it's very CLG, not placing blame, but taking radical responsibility. Now draw inside that body what blocks your voice. And people do slashes here and X's here and all kind of squiggly lines here and X's at the crotch. Their sexuality is cut off. And
the universe. Oh my God, the universe right now.
And then you have to share the pictures if you want. You say, we always say the difference between theater and therapy is, or rather, is, and it's
what?
In voice work, it's what I really do want to say. What I want to say is what I most want to say is in the theater training context. Whereas in theater, or in therapy rather, you might be sharing things that you don't really want to say. But oftentimes we really fucking do want to say stuff to a group. We want to be heard. We want to be seen. Mm-hmm. Like I just had therapy this morning with Kathy Latner.
I had therapy
with Kathy. We have the same therapist. Bethany hooked me up with her. And there's stuff I said in that I don't want my colleagues to know. Do you know what I mean? Like that's not because I'm suppressing or repressing they really don't need to know that stuff. And then there's a whole bunch of crap that I really wish they would know. Do you know what I'm saying? And that's the stuff that you get to say in a theater classroom, in my classroom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, today, so my best friend's here and we went to the beach and I'm just having this consistent, I would say energetically, all my protective mechanisms are up really high. And especially around my diaphragm. Wow. It feels inflamed. And I was thinking about, and I was all day, I'm like, I've got to find a healer. Like I even thought about flying to Bethany's and having Mia like work on me.
Oh my God.
Because I'm like, this is significant. Like whatever is down there is like significant, but I know it must be related to my voice because of how teary I'm getting.
Oh my gosh.
And you're talking about it. And then when you're talking about the drawing, like when I was laying on the beach, it feels like I kept being like, I just wish somebody could take a vacuum cleaner and like clean out the energetic field down there.
You know what we say in Linklater voice work? Kristen would say, the voice is a great sweeper. She would use that word, and it sweeps out all of that content. This is amazing. You really should.
Do you want to do some work?
Yeah. And the first thing I actually want to do, if you're willing, Bethany, is interview the one that said, I don't want help.
Sure.
Because remember when you texted me and you're like, Paul could do this. And I'm like, it's a really strong persona. And I think it's blocking me from being available to some of the healing that maybe I'm needing.
Great. So for people listening, we had trouble getting on. There was all these tech issues getting on.
Trouble is an understatement.
Real chaos trying to get on the pod. Like we're on Zoom, we're not on Zencastr, it wasn't working. And Lauren was like, okay, I'm triggered, I need a minute. And I was like, oh, Paul can do Alexander with you to help. And she wrote right back, I don't want help on the text, which I was like, okay. But so I don't want help is here. So we're going to just tune into who this one is so we can, if there's some kind of block to being totally available. Is that the name? I don't want help?
Yeah, I don't want help. Don't help me. Don't help me.
Don't help me. All right, don't help me. What is the most important thing to you?
To not trust anyone.
And don't help me. What are you most proud of and how you've served Lauren in her life?
That motherfucker. She just opens herself up to whoever, wherever. She has no radar. She just, goes and asks for help for people that like are not safe and constantly hurt her. And I am here to be like, nah, no more of that bullshit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And don't help me. When did you first make an appearance in Lauren's life?
It feels like anywhere from 7 to 14, but the energy is like I'm just going to take care of myself. I can't depend on anyone around me. Like, I'm just going to do the best that I can with what I have.
Do any memories flash by when you're thinking about that?
It's like I saw a bunch of different things at one time. Like I saw a flash of like a 7-year-old memory and then a middle school memory. But there's just a really strong energy, like a coding over all that timeline almost.
And don't help me. When did you, or who did you learn your style from? Where did you see this out in the world, or who specifically did you get created in response to?
My mom and my dad.
Mm. And don't help me. What are you most afraid of?
Becoming like dependent. But it's a weird energy. It's like I think they're the victim. I can feel the victim in there. It's like so desperate for their needs to be met that like if they start getting met, it might feel so good. I wouldn't want to let go. But there's also like a feeling of like being violated by being that open.
And if you were violated by being that open, would that be a threat to control, security, or approval?
Security.
Mm-hmm. And don't help me. In your heart of hearts, what do you most want?
Help.
What about when you're above the line, when you're not triggered, and when you're your highest self? What kind of gifts do you give to Lauren? What would Lauren not have if you weren't here?
I think above the line, it's like the energy of like sitting in the throne of your own life, trusting your own guidance, not outsourcing.
Yeah.
And I can feel like the tug of war between this one and the part of me that I've basically experienced I have created some personal betrayals and hurts. Mm-hmm. And it was because I really outsourced and was like, I need help. I need guidance. Please come into these vulnerable places and spaces and help me. Mm-hmm. I'm going to just follow your guidance no matter what. And then, feeling violated by that guidance, by that vulnerability. So these seem to be like,
mm-hmm. Yeah, it felt like what would be called a firefighter persona. Have we talked about this? Like the managers and the firefighters and stuff. Yeah. So like when it gets too hot, when it's stressful, like the firefighter comes and like does damage control. And I'm making up that's like, this one's like entangled with someone in you that sometimes plays out a codependency storyline, and sometimes maybe in that highest self of that one, it's more of an interdependent storyline, and that they're like entangled and they do different stuff depending on how that's going, you know, like that this one's like when those energetic back and forths between you and other people and like safety and support and vulnerability and all that is happening, and something happens that doesn't feel good, this one goes and slices it down the middle.
Yeah, and that all the walls.
Yeah.
Paul, I'm curious what came up for you when you were listening or what you're noticing.
Oh, well, you know, when a student in class says, I feel walls coming up, I often say, like, how do you know? What are the walls? Unpack the walls. What do you sense? And I've had students say, I literally put up a barrier in my mind between myself and the audience and, you know, other people. And I guess I was just curious, like, if you don't mind my asking, like, how do you, what are the walls for you? How do you know when they come up? Is it a tightening at the jaw, freezing at the diaphragm, sucking in of the belly muscles, like a body armoring?
It's a feels like a pushing out of my like my sacral chakra womb area. It's like a pressing and a constriction, like a twisting in my throat, and my jaw really tight.
Yeah. Do you guys want to try a little Alexander technique in this moment? It's the other modality I teach.
Yeah, and your voice is so soothing. I just want to like
Oh,
lay in it.
Thank you.
I thought about Paul.
We cuddle all the
touch
time.
each other literally constantly.
Yeah, your energetic field is so clean.
So
Really?
So clean and light and
I was saying to the therapist, I was like, I'm going on this healing podcast. I was like, it's such a joke. My life is such a mess. And I was crying. And she was like, Paul, we're all on this life journey. We're all struggling in this life journey together. And I was like, okay. So I'm glad that that's how I come across meeting someone for the first time. So let's just feel our feet on the floor. Let's feel your feet on the floor. Oh, yeah, you might feel in a sigh of relief. Oh, yeah. Talk to your right hip socket. Just gently give a little instruction to your right hip socket to let go. Say, allow my right hip socket to release, and allow my left hip socket to release. F.M. Alexander, the father of the Alexander technique, would say, your body will do whatever you ask it to do if you ask it nicely. Your body will do what you ask it to do if you ask it nicely. And we're not usually nice. We're like, oh, relax, you know, which is the worst thing you can do. The best thing is to say, oh, let my pelvis release. And allow my feet to drop away from my ankles. Allow my knees to free away from my torso. Allow my hands to release away from my wrists. Allow my elbows to release out and down. These are called directions in the Alexander technique. Allow my neck to be free so that my head can release forward and up, so that my back can lengthen and widen. Allow my belly to be free. Allow my heart to be free. Yeah. And just allow ourselves in this moment to take in the world around us, the space above us, behind us. With the right shoulder. Yeah, I just had a moment remembering that I'm actually here with Bethany. It's like we go into a trance. I'm literally sitting right next to her, and I just had a moment of locking eyes. And I was like, I'm with another person, you know? Like, do you know what I'm talking about? It's so weird. And I know, obviously, on some level that I'm here, but it's like I was in a trance, you know? Yeah. And then allow my jaw to let go. Allow my eyes to rest in their sockets. And it's not doing anything, it's an allowing. And allow the muscles of the throat to let go. The jaw, the tongue, shoulder blades melting like ice to water. Yeah. And I'm feeling a little bit just in this chair, like my hips can't fully release because I'm being pulled down and back a little bit. So it's always helpful to come on the edge. But F.M. Alexander observed that right here, he called this the primary control. right at the atlanto-occipital joint where the neck spine meets the skull, right in the middle. He called that the primary mechanism, the primary control. And that shows up in everything we do. You know, even just the thought of public speaking makes people go into
that's where I have so much pressure all the time. Like I
yes.
have to actually get people to press on it because it gets so
Yes.
constricted.
I'll
Yeah.
show her what you do to me all the time.
So I do this to Bethany all the time. I bring a hand here and a hand here. Again, this is more Alexander
Jay
technique.
does that for me. Jay is always.
Yeah. And it's the gentlest little pressure that it just invites her skull to release over that AO joint. And Frank Pierce Jones, one of Alexander Technique's first teachers who trained with FM Alexander, he calls this the tension distribution point in the whole body. The tension distribution point in the whole body, right there at that primary mechanism. And it's not a position, it's a relationship. So as I can be looking at my phone, and rather than going into it like this, practicing the principles of the Alexander Technique would be to let my phone come to me and not compromising that head, neck, torso relationship. Yeah. And sometimes when we're pulled down in that perpetual startle pattern, then the muscles of the throat close off as well. Yeah. Do you notice any change in the condition of your mind body as
a little more open? I'm curious when you say the central control, is that what you called it?
Primary control.
Primary control. Like, can you say more about like how would you define primary control of what?
Yeah. So pretty much it's like of the whole organism. That, you know, we observe in various species on the planet that the head leads and the body follows. So that can't happen if the head and neck are kind of fused together in this perpetual startle pattern that comes from being in fight or flight and just misusing ourselves, to throw in a little Alexander Technique jargon. So this is a technique that's taught at Carnegie Mellon and Juilliard and Yale and Boston University and Boston Conservatory to help actors find their ease and find their poise and greater release. And it's not about relaxation, but it's about use so that we can get more breath into the lungs and the voice can come out with more ease and freedom and not so much constriction. So FM Alexander just observed, he put mirrors up in his living room. He was a Shakespearean actor in Tasmania, Australia, and he kept losing his voice. And he went to the best doctors, voice therapists, voice coaches, and he would maybe experience a little temporary relief. But then as soon as he got on stage again, he'd lose his voice again. So he said, okay, I'm going to take matters in my own hands. He put mirrors up and he observed that just at the thought of speaking Shakespeare, just at the thought of speaking or any text, he would collapse here, pull down here, tighten his jaw. And he said, oh, okay, so I'm doing that to myself. It's something I'm doing. So we talk a lot about responsibility in Alexander Technique. And he said, what if I inhibit that? And I say, okay, just at the thought, what if I say, I'm not going to tighten my neck and collapse here and pull down and suck in the breath. I'm going to say, let my neck be free so that my skull can release forward and up and my back can lengthen and widen. And this took several years. It's not like he just came up with this in one sitting, you know. And he cultivated this technique, saved his voice. He never lost his voice again. And he taught it to people all over the world. And now it's done at the major conservatories and actor training programs in the world. So
I didn't even know all of that, actually. And I mean, Paul, we do Alexander all the time, but whenever, so he'll come up to me and just put his hands on me really gently like that. Like I'll be, I don't know.
Be cooking.
I was just going to say cooking. I'm like doing a million things in the kitchen and the kids are loud and there's people in the house and
I can see her going like this.
Yeah. And he'll just come up and what I do with it, I mean, it reminds me of the nervous system. So like even right now, it's like pretty reflexive when you do it now. It's very easy for me to.
It's a very light touch.
But I think about the nervous system and I think about like a lot of the grounding exercises that we do. it's like I let myself feel the weight of my body, and I feel my feet on the floor, and I imagine my energy going down through the floor into the ground at that really light touch.
Yes. And we talk about oppositional forces in Alexander technique. So my pelvis is dropping down and my legs are freeing down into the earth. I'm rooted underneath the earth, like roots of a tree spreading out underneath the earth's surface. And at the same time, like a giraffe or like a swan or like a tree, my spine is lengthening up. My back is lengthening and widening. So we call it oppositional forces. And so both can happen at the same time. My pelvis can release down, my tailbone can release down, my sacrum can release, my legs can free, and at the same time, neck free, head floating forward and up, back lengthening and widening. Do you notice a change as I say these things, Lauren? Like, how do you feel?
Yeah, I can. Well, first you said sit at the edge of the chair, right? And that's to help the posture up more. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. When you're talking about the different asking your body nicely, like I've actually gotten that feedback from my body before. So my body was kind of like, see.
Yeah.
And then when you talked about allowing, that's like a word that my body understands energetically, I think, or my mind and my body connect upon. So it was like, oh, allow, right? Allow, because there's so much forgetting, right? The contraction so often forgets. I can just allow. I can just bring my awareness to the opening. And so then the lengthening up. So I feel lighter, but it's interesting because I had then a strong kind of almost like electrical pain go up my left side right here. And my eyes, I guess some pressure, but there's something like almost like my third eye is a little like I feel almost a little vertigo, I guess, type of feeling.
It can be a lot. I mean, if you've been here for a while, and I'm not saying you, but just anybody, if a person has been here holding even in some degree or gradation of that, and then all of a sudden we say, all right, let the neck be free of that, but that's a lot of energy getting released all at once. So we titrate it in Alexander technique, and yeah. Gosh, I wasn't expecting to get into all of this, but yes.
Well, I mean, I just imagine so many people listening, like this is so of service to so many people.
Yeah.
I was thinking about, like, I wonder if Alexander, if we interviewed some of these people around these modalities, if there's if they would say that acting is channeling, because it's basically, it feels like you're getting the system and the antenna, like available to like be
to like take on forms and voices and stuff, and to like
to be, I don't know, like I just am having this image of like being a container that's available for things to move through the container.
That's exactly what I teach. That's exactly what we teach. The students come in with this faulty idea that acting is putting something on, and it's not. It's saying, okay, it's that's why Bethany and I just riff on all of these techniques, because it's persona work. It's saying, all right, I've got a murderer in me, and the freshmen don't think, no, I don't. I'm like, oh, yes, you do. Yes, you do. If you had a toddler and all of a sudden someone came to abduct that toddler, you better believe that some primitive, primal, animalistic being would erupt in you, and you'd, take your, so, or if sexuality has been repressed or whatever, for me, that was what it was. I went to Gordon College with Bethany. I was gay. I had a girlfriend. And then I did this month-long intensive at Shakespeare and Company in Western Massachusetts in the Berkshires. And that's where I was introduced to Linklater voice work. And I came out from the work and my whole body was tingling. My lips were numb. My hands were shaking, from the actor training, from getting in touch with my voice.
We actually had to sign, I think it's a Christian school, and we actually had to sign something that we weren't gay or something.
Yeah.
To go to college.
Great. Good thing.
Yeah.
So,
You sign it away and there's just, wow.
Yeah, it's not
the things we do to people.
Mm-hmm.
It's like how I signed purity promises.
Yeah.
I won't have sex.
Yeah. Yeah.
I took it really seriously though.
Yeah.
So we can shame ourselves later.
Yeah. Gotta create something to talk about in therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So Paul, I've got Mia here, we've got Carolyn doing like attunement and massage, we've got Paul doing Alexander technique. So a couple weeks ago we were like, we just should get a table, like a bodywork table for the house. So we did. So we have a table, and like Paul will, to have Alexander technique performed on you, I guess, or to interact with it, you lay on a table and it's like, it's work. It's like body work that's really gentle. But he'll be like, I've seen him with people he doesn't know, like be working on them, and he's just listening and like gently touching different parts of the body and like moving the leg or like moving a joint or something. And then he's like, what happened here? And he'll be like, what happened in this knee? And they're like, oh, I had surgery on that knee 12 years ago and it still bothers me. Yeah. Like he can feel.
You get sensitive with your hands. Yeah.
Yeah. You can feel what's happening in people's bodies.
And actually, in Alexander technique, it's not like a therapist client or a patient situation. We call them pupils. So you're learning. It's a re-education of how you use yourself from moment to moment. So it's actually a teacher student. We are certified Alexander technique teachers.
Yeah.
So it's a nuance of the work. It's a technique that's taught. And it can be applied to anything as you drive the car instead of driving like this. People laugh because my seat.
It's insane.
People make fun of me. And I'm like, as my use changed, I no longer want to be driving like this, all collapsed. So I have the chair now supporting my back.
The furthest up that it can go.
Yeah, I wish it were more, because I want my spine lengthened and my head floating and my back lengthening and widening rather than gripping the steering wheel like this. So I can be a great definition. I should just say this for listeners who don't know. A great definition of the technique is it addresses how you do whatever you do and who you think you need to be while you're doing it. So it involves the mind, the body, the spirit, all of you, how you do whatever you do and who you think you need to be while you're doing it.
And is that based on the assumption that who you think you need to be is who you need to be? Like you're choosing to be that?
I think people aren't aware that they're choosing. Do you know what I mean? And we say, like, we can all just practice it now. So we're doing a podcast here. We can pause and just let our necks be free. The neck be free. It's all in your thinking. Let the neck be free. Let my head release forward enough. Let my back lengthen and widen. Just a little inhibition and direction. Feel the chair. And am I needing to be something special in this moment? Am I somehow interfering with who I really am in the flow of my soul and my spirit and myself? Am I blocking myself in any way? And might I inhibit doing that? Let that go. So sometimes in Alexander technique, we have positive directions like neck free, head floating forward and up, back lengthening and widening. That's the classic little litany, directing the body out of contraction. But sometimes we have negative directions. So it's not negative in the familiar connotation of the word, like bad, but a negative direction might be, I'm not on a podcast right now. I'm just hanging out. I'm not auditioning right now. Do you see how useful this would be for actors? This is not a callback right now.
So you're just choosing your reality so you can have the experience.
It's not denial. It's, obviously we are doing a podcast. It's not denial, like this is being recorded. But when I think that this is being recorded, I tighten. I'm not saying that I'm scared stiff, but I tighten in my body a little bit. It makes me just a little more tight. But when I say, I'm not doing a podcast right now, it just frees up that little part of the brain that has me doing something extra. blocking my flow.
Yeah.
That makes sense. No, it's like, no, I'm just here with friends. I'm just hanging out.
And it might be pointing to something, because my first thought is, I'm here with friends. And that's actually how I think about this. And I never get nervous to do this podcast. I really don't think I don't notice that filter very much. So like, it probably, whatever lens we're choosing, whatever beliefs we're choosing consciously or unconsciously about whatever it is we're doing, I'm sure just have such a big impact on what our experience is and how we show up.
Exactly. Because we get even Oprah says that you don't get what you want, you get what you believe. We get what we believe. Yeah.
Well, I'm noticing the thought that I'm pretty at the effect of my body. Like I don't, the energy of responsibility or creator, that I know in other spaces, like shifting from victim to creator energy. Like, I generally think I sit in like victim. Just even today, I was like kind of like praying for support and like bring me a healer, like, where you're reminding my consciousness that it's about where I place my awareness. And in my last medicine journey, my awareness can go very, very deep with medicine. And I felt like I was going into my genetic code, and like I could feel from the place of creator and responsibility, like choosing what I wanted to do with my DNA. And like that, I've had that experience on medicine a few times. It's like, it seems like the message is like your awareness, wherever you can bring it, has a lot of choice about what's happening over here. Like
where attention goes, your energy flows, Tara Brach.
Tissues and, and then I'm thinking about like, how might I create a practice in my life to continue to remind myself to move into creator around the experience I'm having in my body? Because I clearly have kind of a disciplined practice or a habit, just similar to like, crunching over or being a victim, or I don't know how to shift what I'm feeling, or these walls are up, I just have to wait till the walls go down, and this is reminding me like, oh, actually, there's a practice that I could bring to this.
Yes. What I tell my students is this helps us just get back to center sooner. Whereas before I knew the Alexander technique, I would be knocked out for a weekend. Do you know what I mean? Something would happen, I'd get triggered, and I couldn't come back to center. Now I get back to who I am. I get back to a free body and a free sense of self and a state of ease and relaxation and flow faster. And Debbie Adams, who was one of my teachers in the Alexander Technique Teacher Training Program that I graduated from, she would say, just bring 2% of this into your life. Just 2%. And it changes the brain. I mean, neurons that fire together, wire together, neuroplasticity. So every time you free the neck, let the head float forward and up, the back lengthen and widen, you let your heart be free, you let your breath be free. Every time we do this, we're carving those new neurophysiological pathways to more relaxation, more ease, more freedom. It really is life-changing work.
It reminds me so much of somatic experience, because we're doing stuff that is like these practices, but the mechanism in SE is when you are doing these like release exercises, completion exercises, like when you're staying with the body and allowing it to go where it wants to go and like letting all the sensations be there, you're actually like moving certain nerves back together in a way. You're creating new neural pathways that are supporting trauma release in the body. And so there's like a whole deep science part of it that you need to know or understand in order to be successful in experiencing the SE, but it's the same.
And we say in Alexander Technique too, there's a big, some Alexander Technique teachers know a lot about anatomy and they can name every muscle and every bone and all of this. And some argue you don't need to know that. Neck free, head floating forward and up, back lengthening and widening, feel your feet, relax your belly. Can you do less? That's one of the Alexander Technique directions. Can I do less right now? Can I do less?
Well, I want to point out how many times I keep yawning, which I know is a release, right?
That's good.
It is a
I'm releasing.
You're in like like you're
my settling.
Rest and digest. Yeah.
And I'm just thinking like all of these methods I think are taught to us by the body, like somatics, like Alexander method. Like if we listen to the body enough, and we practice with it enough, it will teach us what it needs. And then we add words and context to teach it to other people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like SE is just being with. It's just listening and being with and allowing the body. That's all.
Paul, you kind of brought this up, so I just want to touch on it. So you were talking to your therapist today. You were a little bit trepidatious, maybe like not sure how vulnerable you wanted to be here. Am I understanding that right?
I've been very scared to do this podcast. I've been very nervous about it. Because for many reasons, I feel like who am I to speak about healing, when I'm still struggling so much. Just having my face out there to be ridiculed or to have someone say something bad about, it feels very vulnerable to me, I admire you guys so much for your courage and your strength and your vulnerability to put this out for the world to see on YouTube. I am a YouTube fiend. I am a YouTube addict. I watch YouTube every single day, several times a day. I have like 5 podcasts going that I'm listening to. And so I take it really seriously. And so to have me out there just is very, 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 is very scary to me. And I kind of prefer, I feel safer being on, I was an actor for a while. I have 3 degrees in theater. I have a bachelor's, master of music and musical theater from Boston Conservatory, and my MFA in theater ed from BU. And I like being in the classroom so much because I'm like, you go be great. You go be beautiful. You go be fierce and share your gifts with the world. I'll be here hiding in the back. It's probably shame. Shame came up in my meeting today with Kathy, with the therapist. We were doing some grounding, orienting, and just feeling into the chair. And she was just helping me really relax and get comfy where I was. And she was like, what's happening for you? And I said, shame is coming up for me. Like this feeling of badness, like I'm a bad person, just always there, so. Well,
first, I just want to honor you, like honor your shame, honor your fear. Like there's no reason to push past anything, like only reveal and be as vulnerable as what feels comfortable and safe to your body. And I'm grateful that you chose to be here knowing that.
Now I'm having fun. Now that I'm in it, I'm like, wow, I'm scared.
The universe like softened you up a little bit. Like, I'm going to help this poor triggered soul over here and get into my genius.
I think that's what scared me is I was like, I'm not healed. I'm not healed. How can I go on this healing collective podcast?
Well, good thing me and Bethany are so healed.
Yeah.
We're like expert at healing. So clearly we earned our right to have a podcast.
Yes. And now I understand.
Sarcasm, read the sarcasm in that.
Yes. Yeah. And now I get that. And I get that it's not about being healed ourselves, but just having a conversation about it. And
well, I think this is there's a couple of things I want to touch on though. One is this belief, which is a story that I think that is I would make up as a collective story that healing is, there's an end point. Yes. That some people are healed and some people are not healed. Mm-hmm. That if you're not healed or you're in the process of healing, you're trying to get to kind of a top of a mountain, just like there's a success piece to it, which we could bring capitalism, so many things, right? Kind of point to like, and at the core of that is perfectionism. And Brene Brown talks about, how much shame is at the root of.
Paul, Brene Brown's like #1 fan.
I have her work memorized.
He says her quotes. I don't have to read her work because I'm friends with Paul.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so great for actors. You know, she says she defines vulnerability as uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. I'm like, that's acting. Thanks, Brene. You just taught my class for me. Yeah.
And that shame can exist in the face of like empathy and acceptance, you know? And I think about that and the power of our voices. And I feel like when I say our voice, I even want to say like there's some, and I can't explain it. I think we all have a sense of it, and their words don't do it justice. Like there's a core central truth in our spirit. Like there's a truth that is only ours that gets so covered by everything else in this dimension of reality, like blankets put over it, right? And then on top of this shame, like don't you dare bring that really unique individual piece out, because it's going to disrupt everything we got going on over here. That's like, and this is what's acceptable. So if it doesn't fit in one of these, like keep it, you know. And I think I could make a case that like white supremacy, patriarchy, like some people defined what those things are at different points, like straight, like, right. Like, so I think, and the beauty that you teach this work, and you're also in your own process of having an opportunity to bring your voice a little bit more forward in this podcast, and then using your own work to move through what comes up around that.
But like Paul is one, what is it? There's like 4 people in the world that have the combination of trainings that Paul has.
Alexander and Linklater,
There's 4 people who know what he knows about these things and how they relate to each other. And he's like, what could I say? You know, like,
right. And it's more like, what if you don't say it? There's only 4 of you. Like, like that's pretty small.
It's this amazing combination, because Linklater aims to free the voice from, like I said, that pool of vibrations, that imaginary pool in the belly, your soul, your spirit, the interior castle, as Saint Teresa of Avila said in the 1500s, the interior castle. And she would say that
the interior castle.
Isn't that amazing?
I just want to feel my. What'd you say one more time?
That's the soul.
Interior castle.
My interior castle. Like, that is not how I'm experiencing the interior of my body.
Right. And Saint Teresa of Avila said in her writings, she has a piece of writing called The Interior Castle. And there's this meditation that you can take that Caroline Myss outlines in her book, Entering the Castle, that she wrote in 2008, where you close your eyes and you imagine you're walking through the forest and you see a moat, and the moat is all the gremlins, like what you're describing, white supremacy and capitalism and toxic this and toxic that, and CNN and Fox News and Twitter and all of that. And this is what I do with my students. I do this at the beginning of class sometimes. And they say, imagine a drawbridge goes down over that moat, and you walk over the drawbridge, and all of those gremlins and reptiles are, grabbing at your heels, trying to get your attention. And I say, just ignore them. Keep walking over that drawbridge. Enter into that crystalline castle, that interior castle of your soul. And then the drawbridge goes up. And I say, just close your eyes and rest within the walls of your soul. Isn't that beautiful? And I just let them rest.
Like, can I call you later? Can we do this? I might need this a few more times.
Isn't that gorgeous? And then I say, okay, now leave the castle. I let the kids hang out there, and they're just like this. And sometimes you'll see little tears go down their cheeks. It's the most.
And these are like, your students are like what, 22? Like what's
19,
your age?
18, 19.
18, 19.
And
he got teacher of the year last year, which was by the students. They write him letters constantly. Like, they're obsessed with him.
Yeah. I'm working with Kathy on letting that in, because I'm like, I want to bulldoze over it and go, yeah, but so-and-so doesn't like me, and so-and-so doesn't like me. The negativity bias in the brain, it's so strong.
So strong.
But I say, okay, now you've spent some time in the interior castle, remember who you are, and now leave the castle, walk over the drawbridge, go out into the world, but keep keep that soul, keep that spirit. And that's your voice, because I think sometimes when I say, all right, free your natural voice, the students might think it means go be a bad bitch and tell everyone.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That may not be your natural voice. That just might be another one of those other
gremlins.
Right. We talk a lot about fight, flight, freeze, flirt, fawn, and fold, and how they show up in the body.
That's
I know
even more than I know about.
Yeah,
the flirt one. What's flirt?
Talk about
flirt is see.
Tiffany.
Yeah, flirt. It's we all have them all. I tell
My
the students
sexual
we all
persona.
use them all.
Tiffany.
I love Tiffany. She's my favorite of Bethany's personas.
Whenever we're going out to dinner, he's like, "Is Tiffany gonna come?"
Yes.
Oh, Tiffany's like your flirty one.
Sexual persona.
Her sexual persona.
Um,
But so I'll say, fight shows up as like toughness, body armor, muscle tension, kind of taking up a lot of space like this, being really tough, big, I think about being at the gym at Planet Fitness, there are these guys walking like this and they scare me. They're in this kind of fight mode, chip on the shoulder, like picking a fight, and then there's flight, which is shifting the weight, nausea, maybe, playing hair.
So much of that, actually.
Fight?
No.
Oh, flight.
Although
oh,
I mean, I have noticed a lot of freeze in myself, but everything you just said, nausea, shifting weight, hair, like I do so much of that.
Me too.
I do a lot of it. Yeah.
Me too. I felt it even, like get me out of here, flight.
Mm-hmm.
Freeze is pretty self-explanatory. Muscles freeze, frozen states that are talked about a lot in, somatic experiencing. Flirt is everything's a joke. Hi, everyone. Hi. A lot of flirting, joke telling.
I can also see it as this is the first time I thought of flirting this way, but like if you were trying to pounce another animal, like if we were animals, right? Like you might tease the animal like that you have something for them that they want to like bring them closer to you, but then use that as a protective strategy, right?
Oh. Yeah. And we need them. I think of sometimes in action movies or horror movies when there's someone like with a gun like this or with the axe, and you're like, you don't really want to do this, do you? You don't want to do this.
That's the flirt response.
The flirt response, right? It's disarming.
This is changing my life right now that we've added the flirt response to the.
And like when I lived in New York and I waited tables and I got out at midnight and I lived in Brooklyn and Bay Ridge and I would get off the subway, I would have my water bottle, my Nalgene, and I had it in my hand. I was like, someone comes up, like we need I tell the students this, we need our fight. This is not to be, we're not to shame ourselves with these things, and flirting's great. Like, why not tell a funny joke and make people laugh and disarm people,
What's fold?
Right.
Fold is probably related to freeze, like immobility, lethargy, shutdown, just
like getting
apathy,
stuck in like
really getting stuck.
Low and like almost in that.
Yes. In that, the whatever, the dorsal vagal shutdown, parasympathetic. Yeah.
It's kind of like saving other people.
Yes. Well, fawning is the disease to please, as Oprah calls it. The disease to please, which
how many F's is that you just said?
Fight, flight, freeze, flirt, fawn, fold. And Jim Dethmer, I've heard say faint.
That might be fold.
Fold, yeah.
Fold, faint. Okay, we'll say 6. Okay.
My favorite thing is when Paul notices some of our teachers' mannerisms and does them for me.
Yeah, I do that for everybody.
I'll start with this. So I did a TEDx talk in the fall, and I had Paul give me feedback on my voice. Like I public speak about being like a subject matter expert, but I've never done public speaking to be like compelling and in my body. Like I don't have any training or like a lot of awareness around that. So I wanted to be a good speaker when I gave the talk, and I asked Paul for feedback, and he gave me really, really good feedback. But he said, what were some of the things that I get? It was like monotonous, my voice sometimes. And what else did you tell me? Like tell me some of the feedback.
So a DeWitt, a downward inflection pattern going down at the end of it.
Yeah.
And she would get into a little bit of a like a lull, a lull. There's kind of a singing, that would happen we call that singing the text rather than speaking the text. My goal for Bethany is to really have her drop her voice. Yeah. Her,
what do you think her real voice sounds like?
Well, it's connected to anger,
When I'm in a drama triangle, that's his favorite. When I'm triggered and I'm in the triangle and I'm bitching and I'm angry, he's like, I love this. I love this.
I love when Bethany gets mad. Like if someone leaves the front door open, she's like, or like when she, if the kids are out of control, she'll be like, guys, because she gets on her voice, I love it. It makes me happy.
Tell me, will you do Jim and Diana?
No, God, no.
He's like, no. Boundary.
No. Because I don't want anyone to ever think
you can do me.
No, it's not making fun. He exaggerates. It's like when I see people's flags. He sees different stuff though. He has a totally different lens, and he can redo it because he's an actor. He'll take it on and exaggerate it, and then you have a totally new awareness.
Yes, I love that.
Like he'll watch someone walk. Like my friend, my co-pilot, he'll do people's walks, and he becomes the person. And so he watched Paul do him walk,
and he was triggered.
He was like, "Oh my god!" I look at life, he wasn't triggered, but Paul can take on anything, and he'll exaggerate it and characterize and make it a caricature so that you can see it in yourself.
Well, we do that in movement class. In my actor training, we'd say, okay, walk around the space. Everyone walk, mill and see throughout the space, and follow one person and walk like that person, and you realize people do different things. They favor one side. They hold a shoulder up. The gait, and you practice taking on different personas, if you will, with other people. And then they say, okay, exaggerate it, let it become an extreme, dial it up to a 10, dial it back to a 2. This is actor training. This is what we do. So,
but it's a way to play. It's a way to play with personas. I make up that, advanced people, if we're coaching them, a lot of times we'll find a persona, and some of the homework will be to play with the persona so you can get to know it so that you can learn to make room for it, learn to love it, learn to integrate. And that taking it on the full way like that could be a really fun way to play with it. Mm-hmm. It really clicked for me. It was before I became aware of or discovered my Tiffany persona. But Jim Dethimer, he kind of did a Paul, and he goes, we were practicing coaching, we were standing in triads and doing stuff in coaches training my first year. And Jim came over to me and he goes, and he was making fun of how I was touching my hair a lot. And he goes, I make up that when you start to get scared, you touch your hair and you're unconsciously sexualizing yourself so that you don't feel so scared. And I was like, I've never not thought of that again, touching my hair. And that's Tiffany, though. That's fully Tiffany showing up. And so I hadn't teased out that whole persona, but that exaggeration of what he did helped me start to tune into her.
Yeah, when we did a circle and we did a persona party, and I came as Leonce in full lingerie. But when I fully let that persona come forward, there were mannerisms that I did that I realized I do all the time. And I'm like, oh, she's there. I'm pretty sure hair was one of them. And I'm thinking about, go ahead.
No. I'm just saying this is why actor training, it is so similar to all of these healing modalities. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, there's what I'm experiencing in my body is I also have that. So there's a hunched over. My last journey, I recognized that I'm hunched over, and my left side, I think it is carrying all the weight of my body. Mm. And what I've been told is that the back side of your body is the collective, and the front side of your body represents the individual. And then we know left and right have yin yang.
Right is the father and left is the mother.
Or masculine, feminine, yin yang. And how imbalanced it was. So the collective, I was basically feeling the weight of the collective and feeling like this. And my whole front of my body is weak because I haven't focused on the individual.
Yes.
And then my left, whatever the receiving side is actually giving way too much. And so there's And that if I want that reorientation of my body, it also changes my consciousness, or my consciousness changes the orientation of my body. And I think that the way that we walk and talk is expressing a lot of these energetic tendencies, biases.
The body is constantly telling us what's going on. That's why I'm so obsessive about looking for flags and watching what people do.
The body never lies, Martha Graham said, the great mother of modern dance. The body never lies.
I was saying this to my friend Jonathan in the car from the beach. I was like, I don't remember exactly what else I was saying, but I basically was like, I'm becoming, I said, I feel most connected. What feels most real to me are the things that we cannot see. Are like not touch, not smell, not whatever. But I feel like but when I try to channel that experience through my words or my mind, it gets so confused. And but what I found is my body tells the most truth to me about what's happening outside of this reality. So for example, like how I was saying I was blocked, or I'm just a no to certain experiences right now. I'm just learning, like in the past, I would override that in my body. But if my body knows before my mind, if my mind doesn't understand, I certainly can't explain it to myself. So sometimes I just have to trust the sensations of my body without a logical reason or understanding, because it's so, and I believe that. I believe it's so intelligent and it never lies.
And I think it's tuned in to like the universe, because like when there's been times that I'm like, I'm trying to make something happen that doesn't want to happen, it is a sensation more than like a knowing or a thought. Like it's an energetic that my body is the main instrument that I pick up on that. At least that's what I feel like feels more and more true as I tune into that kind of stuff.
The astrology, I'm finding like the more that I'm following and learning about astrology, like my body is the first, place where I feel like something's shifting, and I'm like, can match it up with what I know about what's happening with the planets. And I believe that's probably even more true with like in my particular climate and the weather, and then the energetic environment and the people around me. So you think about all of those factors. If our body is like a filter for all of that outward stuff, and then our inward stuff. And sometimes I like to think of our bodies as like a cell phone. And like we have all these apps, right? Plus we're sending calls. We're calling people. So we're sending messages out. We're taking messages in. And we have this kind of like gadget that's trying to maneuver all of these different wavelengths and downloads at one time.
Yeah. It's very overwhelming, especially if you're a sensitive person or an empath. For me, sometimes, and I'm not saying this is a good thing, I'm working on it, but I'll have to take a nap after every class because I can just feel the energy of every single student there. And it's like, I remember when I would be teaching in Boston. Of course, we've been on Zoom for the past year and a half, but I would teach a class, and I remember trying to order, like getting a burrito made or a salad made. I would be so overstimulated, that I could barely ask the person to put the guac on the salad, because my boundaries were too open.
Like fluid. Yeah. This is Bethany and she sent me a text about this last night. I talked about it in the last podcast. Like I'm recognizing, at least for me, it feels like my boundaries were completely open at some point. Then they completely shut down. Then once I got in conscious leadership, they opened up again, and the data was just too much. Plus, I worked on the west side of Chicago with all these students and all these kids and like these really difficult situations. And same thing, just the exhaustion, energetic exhaustion is something that has been so true. And now something in my core is starting to shift, and it's like it's learning energetic boundaries in my energetic system. But what I'm recognizing now in this call or this recording is like, it's like the boundaries are coming up, but I haven't yet learned how to steer them.
Yeah.
So like the body's kind of automatically putting them up now, where before it wasn't even an option. So that, but now it's just putting them up, and I don't know how to steer and to like, I'm not bringing my conscious awareness about, okay, boundary up, boundary down, open, close. So I'm at the effect of this new experience.
Oh my gosh, Alexander technique you have to come up here. You have to come up here.
Like, get on the plane.
It's just, that's Bruce Furtman, who's a really well-known Alexander technique teacher, in his book, Teaching by Hand, Learning by Heart, Teaching by Hand, Learning by Heart. It's about Alexander technique. He says it's about overcoming fear, how we overcome fear, how we deal with fear in the body, like boundaries, how do we erect those boundaries in that body armor when we need to, and sometimes it's appropriate to, and then how do we, dismantle it?
And I'm thinking that in trauma situations, right, or like major crisis, the body has to just
don't have time
as fast without your conscious awareness. So it overrides, I guess, in some way your conscious awareness, which is great, but
then we get stuck.
Right, we get stuck. Yeah. Well, tell me, you alluded to a little bit, it sounds like your healing journey brought you to this method, or this method brought you to your healing journey. Can you tell us a little bit more about your personal journey of healing and how you understand it in this moment?
Yeah. Well, so I was gay. I grew up Southern Baptist, so very conservative.
Okay.
Yes. And I heard a lot, at Sunday school and youth group, and I toured with Christian singing groups. I did all of that stuff, and I would hear how horrible of a sin being gay was. And, if anyone in this room thinks that they have just an iota of homosexuality, you need to tell us now. And I'd be sitting there like, okay. And so I had a lot. And then I got to
fucking angry.
Yeah, I got to college, and I started at a very liberal school, University of Hartford. I did a semester there, and I remember AOL Instant Messenger was popular at the time, and boys were saying like, "Come down to my room," and I was like, and I panicked because I had never had any experience like that, at all. And then I was like, I gotta leave, and I went back to security. And it's so funny because Bessel van der Kolk talks about this in The Body Keeps the Score, that traumatized people, you think like, I'm going to get the hell out of here after that traumatic childhood. No, you actually stay. That's what's fucked up.
Because it's familiar. We go towards what's familiar,
and not seek out other spaces that feel like similarly.
So what did I do at the peak? I'm 18 years old. I'm wackadoodle. I go to Gordon College, Christian, but thank God, because that's how I met Beverly. I'm Bethany. We're in Beverly. Yeah, and so it was there, I had a girlfriend and everything, and I went to Shakespeare and Company. That's where I discovered the Linklater work. And I remember coming out to a room full of people. The teacher was like, "You're gay, Paul," and blah, 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 blah. Everything you do is to manage that and shut that away. And I was like, and I cried and cried and cried. But I remember after that class, people were like, "Paul, where are you going for lunch? Do you want to come with us?" And I couldn't believe that people wanted to have lunch with me. It was the secret that I carried for 21 years. I remember that. I remember it was a beautiful day. The sun was out, and people wanted to have lunch with me after knowing this secret. You're only as sick as your secrets, So I went back to Gordon, and I had to deal with coming out and girlfriend and all of that. And then it just kept unfolding, and I went to grad school for musical theater, and I was a performer, but it didn't feel quite right. And I was always watching the teachers, and I always wanted more emotion. And I was like, they're not free. Like, they're not connected to their anger. Like, they don't have access to their sadness. I could see in these actors that they had so much untapped potential, and the teachers didn't know how to reach into them and get the potential out. And so I'd sit there like, in the chair, I could do a better job, not better, but I don't, So I worked as an actor for a while, and I went back at the age of 28, talk about the universe. I applied to Boston University, and they accept one person a year for their fully funded MFA in theater education. And I was like, let me just see if I get this thing. I went in, I interviewed, I cried in the interview. I was like, I'm never going to work in Boston again. This was so embarrassing. And they called me within 15 minutes of my interview, my audition, and they said, we want you to join the program. And so I said, okay. And, apparently universe, God, source, energy, whatever, the Lord wants me to. Jesus, someone, I was working with Kathy earlier with my spirit guides. Someone wants me to actually move forward with this. So I got my MFA and my Linklater designation in 2014. A job opened up at the Boston Conservatory. I went in, I auditioned for the job, got the job. And then that same year, 2015, Debbie Adams, who runs the Boston Conservatory Alexander Technique teacher training, said, you should join the teacher training. And I was like, oh my God, I just graduated from Linklater. Like, that was exhausting.
Linklater's 4 years?
It was 3.5.
And then Alexander's 4 years.
Alexander was 1,600 hours, 3 years. It took me 4 years because my dad had a stroke in the middle of that, and a lot of family stuff happened that prevented me from fully doing the training. But yeah, and then I got certified in that, and I actually never really went to therapy. I had a few sessions with a counselor, the college counselor at Boston Conservatory and at Gordon. But Kathy's my first real therapist, someone who's trained in psychotherapy. I'm paying her. It's not like some college counselor.
Right.
So yeah.
What's your experience? Like what happened in you from doing all that training and doing all that work?
I see. Okay. I knew I was not, as I was explaining all that, I wasn't hitting something. I think I feel more relaxed. I used to be on medication for anxiety. I don't need that medication anymore. I'm not telling anyone to get off theirs, but I'm able to go into my own inner pharmacy and regulate myself in ways that I never could before. I mean, I had debilitating anxiety in my early 20s. So that really healed up. I think I feel more confident. I give less fucks, I have more self-esteem.
I mean, I experience you as mapping what's happening within yourself and other people, like lightning, lightning fast. He's always mapping, but he doesn't effort around it. He's just very tuned in a playful way.
I can really come back to center. Like, I was feeling pretty depressed and anxious last night into this morning, and now I feel back to normal. Now I have, I can really come back to myself very fast. I greater relaxation, greater ease, more flow, more confidence. I feel like I have worth and meaning and purpose in my life, something to give to other people, a gift to give to other people. I don't feel like I had that all those years ago. And I can really just be there for people now. I think my skill, my capacity for empathy is much greater than it was before. It's just greater emotional intelligence, I would say.
That's the work that I do. The foundation of everything we do is emotional intelligence. And I think just the beauty of sometimes I can get overwhelmed. Like, I need to learn all these methods and read all these books, it's like, I just want to absorb and know all these tools. But so in this moment, I'm just kind of grounding back in one, like, I have access to these tools through this collective that we're building, right? Whether it's listening to a podcast or connecting to someone on there and getting supported. And that at its most simple place, we're trying to get back to our voice, back to our bodies, back to our feelings, right? And release the layers of programming and all the things that aren't ours, generational trauma that isn't us. Because at our, it's kind of like Bethany talks about, the earth can heal itself. We just need to get out of the way. And like, our bodies have all, like we said, it's like this beautiful technology that can do so many things, but we need to help by getting out of the way. And whether it's like taking sugar out of the equation or, making space for feelings or shifting patterns in our thoughts, like how can we get out of the way so that the body system can do more of what it was created to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sure shame is a big shutdown tool of all the mechanisms, right?
Master emotion, some people say, the master emotion.
Shame?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That base layer. We don't feel worthy. We don't feel worthy of speaking up for ourselves or asserting ourselves. Mm-hmm. I really struggle with that. Bethany knows, for me, financially, like feeling that I deserve to make money, to actually, I'll be worthy when I have another degree or another certification.
Right.
Massage therapy school now. It's like, how many damn certifications do I need to make a living?
Yeah, it's like such a both and. That's also another. And again, we can name it a million things, but I work on demystifying white supremacy culture and like patriarchy and like all of that programming. Then not enough. I think my friend Abby said this. Shout out to Abby. The other day, she's like, as long as we're being sold a message that we don't have the right needs and what we most need and want are not the right things, then we are going to constantly seek other things. And those things are going to fuel the economy, and fuel capitalism and fuel, right? That emptiness is fueling something for someone else. But the more we're like, oh, I just actually really need money, or I really need to be cuddled every day, or I really need this, and like accept that that's a need that's worthy, right? It shifts how we show up. And just, I think about like at the core, we have to believe we're worthy to be here and be living. Yeah.
Approaching the world with a sense of, from a place of worthiness rather than shame.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard.
What do you feel like in this now moment? What is healing? What are you working on healing right now? What has that brought you to?
Well, my perfectionism. I feel like I've gained weight in COVID. I feel like my teaching hasn't been as good during COVID. I'm feeling a lot of guilt about, not doing everything that was on my syllabi during COVID, just because I was teaching on Zoom and my time was cut in half. And, it was hard. It was a hard year. And so beating myself up a lot for that. So I'm working on healing that.
What about Jan?
Oh, my mom. Yeah. Yeah. I've healed up a lot of that with my mom. I don't think I had a mom who was very warm growing up. She doesn't call me a lot. She doesn't check in on me, ask me how I'm doing. She never comes and sees me. It hurts. Literally, that is not an exaggeration. I mean, almost never, unless something's wrong, does she reach out, or text me. So just, feeling like, well, that's just a wound. I don't know if that's ever going to go away, but what's healed, and I can thank Kathy a lot for this, is I'm able to see her wounds now more, and I feel less of a victim and I feel a little bit more empathic toward her.
Yeah.
I've noticed.
Less angry. Yeah. That's really shifted.
Even just identifying some of her patterns and not making that who she is, but some of the narcissism being like, this is a trait, this is a thing that happens, but that's not all of who she is and stuff like that.
Right. And that perfectionism doesn't come from nowhere, that's like both and then it's like generational at the same time. Yeah. I had a therapist that said we get the message of how worthy we are from our father and how lovable we are from our mother. Oh. And I'm sure there's I make up gender aside. There's probably just those are two really important messages that we get in different ways as we grow up. And our our providers are balancing those two messages in in our energetic field. And when we don't get that, then, or if we get the message that our worth is earned by doing everything right, and there is a right way to do it, and we're not really sure what the right way is, or the right way is pretty unmanageable.
Yeah.
And it's going to create this constant fight for our worthiness through being perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know that that's how I combat shame, is through perfectionism. My house has to be clean and everything I say has to be perfect and every class has to be perfect. And, because of fear of disconnection and fear of humiliation and fear of not living up to insanely high standards.
Mm-hmm. And when you check in right now, you've revealed a lot. You've been pretty vulnerable the last few minutes. Like, you check in with your body, your spirit right now. How does it feel?
Kind of. I feel sad. Yeah, sad, a little tired. But I feel like I can manage. I feel like I have skills to be able to manage in this moment.
What if you let your tiredness and your sadness be here as much as you want it to be? Like, just let it be here however much it's here for this moment.
Yeah.
It's an invitation. You can say no.
Yeah, I don't make it wrong that you're sad. It's beautiful to me. Like, the experience I'm having lately is like, I'm recognizing that for me to trust people, or something that really helps me trust people, is congruency.
Yeah.
So congruent between what I'm feeling energetically and what they're saying. But in this moment, it would be like, you just shared some pretty like tender things about your mom. Like, I trust you more that there's sadness behind that, because that's congruent with what you shared. And if you weren't feeling that, I would be like, there's something there, for me, when people skip over that experience.
And the fatigue too.
Well, I think it's a little bit of a testament to it is something I've healed up a little bit. Like, I believe me, if I wouldn't be one to suppress tears if they were coming up or something like that. It's really not there in this moment for whatever reason. Maybe because I'm talking about it intellectually, and maybe not. I don't know, but yeah.
Well, you said sadness was here, so I was saying, I guess, that I trust that pause for the sadness because of what you just shared. It makes sense to me.
I'm not saying like you should be crying because you said that. She's like, the sadness is just here mapping, and she's like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's congruent, right? It's congruent that you.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, she's not saying yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's the filter of not doing it right.
Yeah, I feel that sometimes we're even working with Kathy with this on that. I'm like, she wants me to be, there's something she wants from me that I'm not doing.
It's like a listening filter you have almost. Like Lauren was saying, you're doing it right. You feel congruent to me. I trust you. And you heard that you weren't crying, and that maybe in explaining why you weren't crying or something.
Oh, yeah.
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 Which is that same perfectionism kind of patterning that's been there, and it's protective. I mean, you weren't getting needs met, and so you built a bunch of strategies to try to get those needs.
I mean, I was neglected. I was talking with Kathy very early on. She was like, your mother had an obligation to her son that she did not fulfill. And I burst into tears. I got hives all over my body. I mean,
and accepting that.
Yeah. I mean, I was like heaving. I mean, yeah.
Well, I don't want to interrupt you.
No.
I'm just really connecting to that. Because for me, I had this moment where I could feel myself almost like as a infant, and how helpless I was.
Yeah.
But in my mind as an adult, those needs, I'm like, what is wrong with me? I should be able to meet those needs. Like, why, I make that, like, I shouldn't have expected that, but it's actually the one in me that was so young. So when someone gives you permission, like she did, right? Like, your mom had an obligation, a commitment, like, that was that's what they signed up for, with those things. And they're just like needs. They're human needs. They're not like you had some specific case like that she just didn't know how to arrive for, you know?
I mean, I think about what I went through, like in middle school, I had people writing faggot on my locker and, you know, scrambling to find the janitor to erase that, or, you know, just jocks coming up and slapping me on the butt. I mean, that was happening well into my 20s. Just it hasn't happened in a long time, but you know, people being like, "Are you gay? You talk gay. You sound like a girl. So why do you think I'm attracted to the voice work?" And then being at Gordon and all of that, and my parents just, and I handled everything alone. Like, my parents had no idea that any of that was going on at school. You know, one time I was on the bus and this kid, Steve, I remember his name was, I won't say his last name in case he's listening. He's had an awakening and now he's listening to the Healing Collective podcast.
You know who you are, Steve.
Wherever you are. He was like, "How many of you guys think that Paul's gay? Raise your hand if you think Paul's gay." And I remember the whole bus raised their hands. You know, and like they were right, you know, and so that's what fucked with me is all I was like,
right.
And
but they're making it, they're talking about being gay as like, we had these conversations with our students, like you're using the word gay as if it means broken,
bad,
as if it means bad. And that's the trauma. It's not that they're gay. It's that the way that you are expressing that.
Right. And I internalized that. And then it's like, I felt like I would say to people, "I'm not gay." I mean, I denied it for years and years and years and years and years. And then I thought I was bi. And then I, you know, realized that I probably was gay. And now I'm still kind of confused. I mean, I don't know, you know, it doesn't ever fully go away, but yeah. And just to think, you know, I navigated all of that by myself. Talk about how did that person serve you? You know, the persona interview, like I survived, you know?
Yeah.
I remember a really painful memory for me that probably isn't quite the same scale, but I might have experienced it at the same scale, was that there was a boy that I had a huge crush on at LCA in my high school. And we were all in a friend group together. We spent time all together, and I didn't know anyone knew that I liked him or anything. And I didn't want him to know. And one day he called me and was like, he said it really nice, but he's like, "Listen, you know, I know, you know, someone told me, or, you know, I know that you like me or you have a crush on me, but I'm not interested in you like that." Like unprompted. And I was like, "No, I don't. No, I don't. Like, you don't know and I couldn't control how upset I was, that I had lost control of that I felt so much rejection all at once. And then I was like, "What?" I didn't even try to go after, like, I didn't even know that anyone knew how much I liked him. So like that he felt the need to call me and tell me he wasn't interested in me when I hadn't done anything about it. But I lost it. And what I was saying did not match my experience one iota. And it was super upsetting. It was like my first rejection, I guess. Probably I was like in like 10th grade or 9th grade or something.
That's sad.
Definitely.
Well, just, yeah, you're like, we're attuned. I'm watching like how we're kind of attuning to each other a little bit. And I'm tracking this a lot because I realized that I had a story that I'm really attuned. And I'm recognizing like I do attune to very specific things, but at the level that I think my humanness was designed to be attuned, I still have a long way to go. And it's something I'm like really starting to aspire to, because I wonder if like, I wonder if we were created, that our bodies are actually just attuning forks, that if even before language, maybe like we were almost telepathic because we were so attuned. And if this desperation for intimacy and connection that so many of us feel, even when we have some of it, is like this deeper desire for an attunement with it we don't have a vision for. And I had a one sex therapy session. When I can afford another one, I'll have another one. But it wasn't, it ended up, it was about sex, but it wasn't. But the thing was, she was mirroring me in a way that I realized like was probably my deepest need as a child.
Yes.
And I couldn't, it was like, I was like, this thirst that I didn't even know was so thirsty was filled for like that 45-minute block. And then I was like, I'm not doing this. And I could feel even my body kind of block against her being so attuned to me.
That's what Kathy does. She creates a resonant field. I remember that I was like, oh my gosh, she's just mirroring with me. Someone's on my side. Someone's not out to get me. Someone's just being kind to me and being nice to me.
And there's no challenger, it's not persona work. It's bottom up. There's no stories about, there's none of that. It's something different.
Because sometimes challenger with the CLG, sometimes that feels threatening to me. Like sometimes I just want to fucking speak my truth, get on the damn triangle. I don't want someone telling me I'm a victim. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes I struggle with that a little bit.
Well, same way, because there's an assumption that a victim is bad.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess like I'm thinking about how I am in most of my relationships, not all, but especially my core relationships, I haven't healed enough to hold presence for criticism when the other needs are not met.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, it's like there's a container of like safety and trust and reliability, right? That you hope gets created in a relationship of any kind. And when that is there's some like acceptance, like that I can trust is reliable. And and I can feel that my body responds when that's a trustworthy container. Yeah. Like I know Bethany will challenge me and sometimes it does make me uncomfortable, but my body allows it because something around her energy and her consistency and our relationship is like, I don't know. It's like my body knows that it's coming from love and If all of a sudden she got really attached and really wanted me to change, and I could energetically feel that like her identity is somehow wrapped up in what I choose to do or not do, I can feel when my body just shuts down and closes off to feedback in that type of container, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Like both of you, I feel like are pretty attuned to me. Because sometimes Lauren will just like reach out and be like, what's happening over there? Or like,
I felt it today.
Well, Paul walked in to do this. So he like a lot. So him and his boyfriend go out every Friday night to a restaurant. And I started getting in on this. I started third wheeling it a few months ago and going
fourth wheeling it. Now she's bringing her own wheel.
Exactly.
Side note.
My new friend here, but yes, and so he comes now a lot too. Sometimes he's not out of work yet. I'm just kidding. So he texted me this morning about dinner after the podcast, which like normally I'm almost always like yes. And I was feeling really. I've been sick, or I won't say that. I'm healing. Mia tells me don't say I'm sick. Say I'm healing. Manifest healing. But I got really bad strep, and I've been getting better from it. My throat was really, really sore overnight, and I was really tired. So I was like, I think I might just have to stay home because I think I'll be tired after the podcast. But I was like, but you guys can still go, or we can cook something here. And when he came into the house hours later, he was like, how are you? I was like, I'm not feeling that good. He goes, I knew it. I knew it immediately when I saw that text. I knew all day that something was wrong and you weren't feeling good.
Yeah, I could feel. Yeah.
He goes, telepathically, I knew it. And I believe him.
And there was a couple of weeks ago too, where I was like, I knew you had a busy week. Like you had been flat out. It's before you got sick, remember? Yeah. And I could feel that something was off. Yeah.
I love people that know me that way. I love being tuned into people on that level. I love it.
Sometimes Bethany is so loving toward me. She showers her, when you just did Bethany the Lover, the podcast eons ago. Sometimes it's been hard for me to receive that kind of love because I didn't get that from my mom. Like I said, my mom, and she shows her love for me in her own way, but I don't have a lot of love like that in my life. Even the person I'm with now, my boyfriend Mario, he's very loving in his own way, but he's not overly physically affectionate, and that's my love language. It's quality time and physical touch.
Bethany collects those friends, I guess.
Yeah. And Bethany,
we just snuggle each other and gas each other.
We've been holding hands, like you get under here, and I've been sending her energy up her body the whole time. But yeah, so it's, Bethany has sometimes come over and put like a blanket on me, and I'll just cry because I'm not used to someone being nice to me,
Yeah, I experienced that and experience it in others as like we come into this world. I think it happens right at birth. I have all these theories about like even the medicalization of birth and what that's done to like our bodies and trauma. And so our set point vibrationally is fear and self-protection. Generally speaking, unless you have just really present, like I have a friend who she was born in her sac, which is, I guess, like a really special way to be born.
Wow.
Yeah. And it implies a lot of relaxation and acceptance of the experience in the mother.
Yeah, exactly. And her mom, they were like hippies and there was like a water birth at home. And I was like, okay, maybe if I came into the world like that and then had really present, available, attuned parents, wow, what a life that could have been. But that's not what I had. And not that your parents don't love you. Everyone's doing the best they can. And we have some real human needs that I think even as a culture, we have denied.
Absolutely.
I've been thinking about how like one of the first things we do to a boy is cut the end of his penis off when he comes into the world. Like all of the messages, all of the realities that occur. So our
taking blood first day.
Yeah, our set point is like, this place is nuts and scary. And I've been in like universal consciousness and then floating in a womb, which may or may not have been stressful too. And then I come to this. But if our set point was a vibration of like love and care and whatever, like how different that is. And so you think about an animal who's been like neglected or had to care for itself, you might come to pet it and it would growl at you, And I think that's what happens is our set point is fear. And then some people are available to love us and they start to love us and we're like, get that the fuck away from me, actually, because it's going to unravel my whole nervous system that's set to this other point. And I don't know if I can handle that unraveling to be available for this new vibration.
But it's safe to unravel because I need to be on guard.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's my issue with this current moment of cancel culture too. While of course it's appropriate sometimes to make sure that we're rooting out, like you said, white supremacy and racism and all of the instances of that. At the same time, I know in my workplace, I live in a perpetual state of fear of being canceled or, and I'm like, this is not safe. Like we need freedom of expression and to be able to hash out and have conversations and
move through conflict without punitive punishment, loss of jobs,
loss of job, loss of livelihood, loss of income, loss of health insurance, loss of dental. We have to stop this. And the mob mentality, regardless of what side you're on, what side of the aisle, how is this ever going to heal the world? Love heals. And I just believe that so strongly, not saying, check your privilege and get, it's been a hard moment, culturally around feeling safe and feeling secure for everyone on both sides.
Yeah, we're fighting. I think we've just kind of been on autopilot, and we're coming and becoming aware of how scared we are and how threatening a lot of things are. And then we're fighting for our security through right ideas, if we find the right way and decide which one of us has the right way, then we can find security again. But what keeps coming up on this podcast, and I definitely keep dancing with and experimenting with, is I think attunement is actually what, it's not a right way. It's like attuning to the truth of who each one of us is and being fully human with each other, like, is a path forward and a path out of fear.
This is what I do in my classes. I put up little hearts like this. It's so true. Yes. Oh,
Paul, as we land, how would you answer the question, like, well, how do we heal the collective?
I really believe we heal the collective through loving one another. That's what Jesus taught. That's what the great spiritual teachers taught. Through hearing people, loving people, letting people be seen and heard, giving people space for their fear, not attacking, putting hands on. I know it sounds hippy-dippy, but I really believe in my heart that that's the only way that we're ever going to heal the collective. And
I don't think it sounds hippy-dippy. I think that even for me, it's like I know, and not even just in my mind, my body knows that love is what will heal us, but I don't fully know what love is as it is, right? I know what I've been taught love is. I know what I think it is to love. I know how it feels sometimes to love, but I think that love, when we say that, it's calling us to something that's so much more than what we even comprehend.
I think so too. I think it has to do with divinity too. Like, I was working with Kathy today on being connected. She said, I want you twice a day to go like this with your hands. Yes. And just receive some of that divine energy and that divine light. I do feel, and so much of religion is connected to white supremacy and all of that, but I do feel in this secular humanist, very just secular world that we've been in for the past several decades, I see it in my students. We can't take away God and take away religion and take away, having the hand over the heart and, the American flag. And I know some of the problematic roots, but we can't take that away and trash that and not replace it with another kind of, we got to give these kids or the people something other than Instagram, and selfies and Twitter. And
I think we have to be careful not to make, what do I want to say? Make essence into a rule. Mm-hmm. So like, religion is pointing to an essence of living.
Yes.
But the religion itself made it a rule, right? Or or putting your hand over your heart is an essence of holding something sacred, honoring something. But when you make it a rule that someone has to follow, you lose the essence of what it was. And so what I hear you saying is like, we have to give people a way to continue to point to the sacred, to continue to see and remember what is sacred and how to access what's sacred for them, because it's so easy, and with technology and all these other things, to go in a direction where we're totally cut off from life being sacred, other people's bodies being sacred, right? Because if we're all just in a kind of avatar fantasy world of screens, it's not really that sacred. Because on Call of Duty, when I shoot somebody, like, that's not sacred. Like, they just die and they're just going to come alive again when I turn on the next game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's the divinity, I think, that we need to awaken to in ourselves and in other people. Like Brene Brown says, I aim to see the God in everyone I meet,
Our inner castle.
Yeah.
Our inner castle.
And that's in everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you did that, it was like the first time I saw like a crystal Elsa from Frozen castle with like rainbows. And I'm like, wow, that would be a really great visualization for me to do. Maybe that's the practice that I'll take with me, is like sitting up at the edge of a chair, holding my posture and imagining my Elsa and my internal Elsa castle. And you said to close the drawbridge, right? And like keep it to myself, like no one trusting, like I'm holding that sacred in me.
How does your diaphragm feel right now?
Yeah.
It shifted tremendously just then when I lifted the drawbridge.
Yeah.
It was like I could feel it like trusting me a little bit. Like, yes, there was like a
I can't wait for you to come up here. I really cannot wait for you to come up here.
I cannot wait either. I'm like literally going to get off this call and like look at Boston flights. My son's coming to Florida on Sunday and I don't want to like peace out the next weekend. Like mom's leaving, but we'll see.
We're going to get Mia. We're going to get attunement work with Carolyn. We're going to
I want the whole
suite.
It's so fun. You'll love
Bethany's Healing Collective.
Yes.
We light fires. So on Saturday was 6 years since I had my clean bill of health, like my cancer surgery and stuff. It was the anniversary. And so I was like, open house or whatever. And I really just hang out with the same few people every single weekend. But this, like our version of a big party was like 4 or 5 different healers and body workers. We lit candles in the sitting room and lit a fire and got the table out, and everyone just did body work on each other and snuggled each other. And I was like, this is it. This is my circle. This is like,
yeah, you created that life. Like all of you created it together by just knowing Bethany and knowing what she loves. Like, and that gives me some inspiration because, I have these energetic pulls towards relational containers that I want, but I cannot fully articulate what I want to create all the time. And that those things help me to think outside of the box of what I might think I should want to create and connect more to like, what am I here to create? What is the container tribe experience that is going to hold me and I'm going to hold it?
I want you to take a seminar class on our container here. I want you to just come here for a while and like soak it in and get some data points.
Great. Well, Paul, it was so nice to meet you. Thank you for riding the wave of my mood at the beginning. I think it was a service.
Some people are triggered.
I loved it. I mean, not in a sick way, but I mean, I was like, because I just know that so well.
Yeah.
Oh, I know that so well. I was,
What do we think is Paul's Enneagram? Do you know?
2.
Oh.
Yeah.
3 wing, 1 wing, 1 wing.
Could be 1 wing.
I don't know all that stuff. I don't know the astrology.
It's actually, I mean, I know you to be like, the perfectionism thing a bit, but I've never really heard you talk about it in such a defining way. I mean, we talk a lot about type 2 with Paul. He's such a giver and he's so like, I see I think he leads with 2, but 2 with a 1 wing sounds about right. The type 1 is a perfectionist.
Beautiful. Are y'all going to dinner?
I think.
Are you just ordered?
I don't know how you feel.
I feel good. My energy feels steady. I feel better than I've felt all day. And I actually haven't been coughing very much this whole time, which I've been coughing all day. I've been coughing all week so much. I'm not going to go out to dinner. We can all get dinner here or you guys can go, but I'm going to rest and relax. And the guy I'm seeing, I think will be coming over in a little while and we can all do what we do and chill out together, I think is what's going to happen, and probably early bed. Yeah. And do early bed.
Yeah.
All right, love you. So nice to meet you.
Yeah,
can't wait to come to the Healing Collective in person.
I feel like I know you just from watching the other episodes and of course from meeting you now. And or I don't know if you're on Facebook, but if you are, expect a little friend request from me.
Yeah. Instagram is where I'm the most active, but I am on both.
Okay.
I will look forward to your invitation.
Fabulous. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey everybody, if you've got any feedback for us, we welcome it, or ideas about future guests, email us at healingcollectivepod@gmail.com. Our website is thehealingcollectivepodcast.com. We are at Healing Podcast on Twitter, and we are at Healing Collective Podcast on Instagram. Special thanks to Monda Creative, who edits all of our podcasts, and Two Tall Women Productions, who produce. Thank you.